Hey everybody, welcome back to the Firefighters podcast. Today I'm speaking with Zoe Partridge and Matt Adams. Zoe is a paramedic and Matt is a firefighter, and this is part of our couples on the front line. This is a little bit where I want to get as many people who are operating on the front line and are also engaged in some form of relationship with somebody that is also out there kicking ass, taking names, and keeping us all safe and sound. The best way for you to support the podcast is to go on over and check out our partners. We do get a whole bunch of emails in from different partners, and there is actually a lot of thought that goes into who we partner with. Just to be honest, some of them are completely random. So know that the partners we have chosen we believe can add real value to your life. They are authentic, they align with the podcast. And today we've got two partners supporting this episode. First up is the awesome Willingwood Watches. Willingwood Watches was founded in 2016 by Johnny Garrett. Now, this is a brand with a really inspiring story. They upcycle British firefighting materials to make these beautiful handcrafted watches. This company's all about the detail. For example, they melt down the original 20s British brass firefighting helmet and then make it into limited edition commemorative coins. Each of them is engraved with the iconic firefighter helmet logo and its unique number. They have the aim to be the quintessential British luxury brand, producing watches, wallets, bags, accessories, all from recycled firefighting materials. If you check in the notes of the podcast, you can head over and check out their Triumph collection, their Valiant collection, the Bronze, the Chivalrous. My favorite watch personally is the Valiant collection, but even within that brand, you can go in and get the red watch, the rose, the green, the black, the white, the blue. You can tailor this to the watch that you belong to on your fire station. It's a great gift for retirees. It's a great gift for firefighters for Christmas. Now, the straps are actually made from Tyne and Wear recycled fire hose. Now, this is hose that's actually been used in incidents. So on it, you can see all those little markings. They've got the history literally built into the watch. We are heading into Christmas now, so go on over and take a look at them. It's willingwoodwatches.com. They've got so many little variations coming out where you can personalize the watch yourself, get somebody's service number put on it. So go on over to willingwoodwatches.com and take a look. Our second partner of the podcast is the incredible Hikes, with my always favorite hashtag, Heroes Wear Hikes. Hikes are an innovative and high-tech manufacturer of safety boots, work boots, and leisure. I probably got the best pair of 4 pairs of Hikes, including the ones I wear for my British firefighter competing. However, my favourite are probably my Desert Eagle Athletics. I think I wear them every single day. And it's not just for the fire service, they operate in the military, the police service, paramedics. And even if you're that sort of person that wants footwear that's never going to give up on you, then jump on over to hikes.com. There's also something kind of special about this partner in that every single month we give away a pair of Hikes footwear for free. There's no silliness in the small print because that's not our style. So after this episode, be sure to jump over to one of our social media channels where you will see a post where you can get yourself a free pair of Hikes boots. And that's it for today's episode, folks. They are our partners of the podcast. It's the best way to support us, so go into the notes and check them out. So here we go, heading into the episode with Matt and Zoe. There is banter aplenty in this one, and we kind of jump all over the place, but I'm sure there's going to be so many takeaways for you. I think things like this are really important to get an inside look at how difficult it is when you have all of those demands placed on you when you're in that sort of working environment. It's not just about paramedics, it's not about the NHS, it's not about the fire service. People in all aspects of the emergency services can be affected in lots of different ways as part of the career they've chosen. So I know you're going to get some insights into that today. A big thanks for coming back to the Firefighters podcast. So if you are sitting comfortably, let's buckle up for safety, and I will see you crazy cats on the other side. Zoe Partridge, Matt Adams, welcome to the Firefighters podcast. How are we doing, guys?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, we first met each other at the British Firefighter Challenge, and after we got talking, I obviously knew that, Matt, you're an operational firefighter, but then, lo and behold, I learned you're a good lady is a qualified paramedic as well. So we're putting this together as an idea of people that are sort of couples on the front line, and how do we balance that? Because we all talk about how difficult it is to go home and speak to your partners and people not really getting a full understanding of what you're doing. You guys have got this really unique aspect where you've kind of got the best of both worlds. Theoretically, you'd think you understand each other better, but that is going to be tested today. We're going to try and understand a little bit more about the world of, interagency inside the house. So Zoe, for people that aren't familiar, what is your current role and how long have you been doing it?
So my current role is paramedic, or technically newly qualified paramedic. So I've been in the game for about a year now. So no parents telling me what to do. I'm left to my own devices.
That's
it's all right. So yeah, it is. Especially when you turn to try and find someone to tell you what to do and there's no one there.
Yeah, and everyone's staring at you and they're like, what do you think, Mrs. Paramedic, Mr. Person? And you're like, oh, shit. Adam,
Definitely. This is why I'm loving the COVID mask, because you can hide your expression.
you know what? I haven't even considered that. Oh, we don't wear them as half as much as in the fire service. Matt, what is your role and how long have you been doing it?
So I'm currently a whole-time firefighter, and I've been doing that for coming up to nearly 5 years now. Not quite as glamorous as Zoe. Still in that situation where Zoe says to me, the firefighters hold each other's hands. You never see them unless there's two of them. So when Zoe's scared of looking left or right trying to find someone, there's always someone holding my hand.
You know what?
Either the same.
You make a fantastic point there, because I spoke to somebody, I released an episode today actually by a guy called Andy Bibby, his mental health on the front line. They did a massive survey and there was a load of things came out, and it wasn't actually something I wrote down to speak about, but Zoe, talk to us about that, because half the time paramedics are either operating them by themselves or they're on a crew of two. But even then, with the greatest of respect, their driver and or person with them is like an EMT, whereas firefighters, you know, as Matt rightly says, you always have that ability to share the challenge, to share the experience. What's it like when you're the only person there in so many ways, though?
Yeah, it's daunting, and it is the most varied title ever, because some of them have been in the game for longer than I've been alive, and others are brand new and they just want to drive. That is their only role. They'll carry bags and that's it. And recently, during COVID, we've had firefighters driving for us as well.
Oh, Jesus.
So it is,
they are scraping the barrel.
Depends.
As you can tell, though, the response, I bet's improved. The driving through the roof, I bet. Best drivers there is.
I mean, they're good at carrying bags. I'll give them that.
They're good at carrying bags. It's the mind and the muscle.
And to be fair, actually, it's interesting because working with firefighters, they are phenomenal at following orders. Oh, yeah. They are just there. If I need anything, they are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got, I think, and that's probably a really good thing I'll probably want to ask Matt about as well. In fact, I'll ask now. Matt, we have a bit more of it's like a playing military, but we still fall in for parade, we still do the march, and even in a lot of training schools and stuff like that, we tend to still have quite a good aspect of discipline. Do you think that it's as disciplined as it was when you joined 5 years ago? Because I've been in like 13 years now, and I don't think it's necessarily as disciplined as it was. The values are still there, but it's very different. What's your thought? What did you do before this?
So I'm only 24. So before I joined the fire service, I was at university. In my last year of university, I joined as an on-call firefighter. With obviously aspirations of going whole time as and when. And literally in my last year, as I will tell you, because we're together then, I was applying for everywhere and anywhere to become whole time. Always what I wanted to do. I joined in, what would it have been, 2018. Prior to that, I was 2017 as an on-call firefighter. And my course was very much 15 weeks of regimented. We weren't called firefighters. I was Mr. Adams until I passed out. Everything was, at double time, at double pace. Compared to some of the sort of, when you got on station, spoke to older hands, they were sort of said, our course is quite dumbed down compared to previous years. Again, speaking to recruits that came after me on station, I think our course is maybe the last where it was super disciplined. I think a lot of people coming in probably didn't understand or appreciate the sort of history of the fire service and its naval roots and, like you said, that militaristic kind of background. So being shouted at on the drill yard and prayed in probably didn't sit too well with certain people.
When people see the shouting and stuff, I feel like sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater because we go, I don't like people shouting at me. And okay, yeah, I get that. No one likes to be shouted at, but when we hear the military aspect and we hear discipline, we have negative connotations because our parents disciplined us, and when we hear discipline, we hear bad. But I always say to people, there's freedom in discipline, because when you become disciplined at something, it takes out lots of noise, it takes out lots of stuff that gets in the way. I mean, if you just, obviously you and I met at the British Fire Challenge, so even like with fitness and stuff like that, I find discipline makes stuff so much easier. If I impose a self-discipline on myself, then I don't have to worry about being tempted to do other things or, letting things slide because I have that discipline. But when people feel as though it's imposed upon them, there's two things. Why did you have a good relationship with discipline? And also, I wanted to acknowledge the fact you said you went up and down the country and applied for different services, because that, when you talk about your generation, some people think you don't do that anymore. And I'm going to be one of those people, because I'm like, you speak to some people, they're like, I'll apply for this one brigade. If I don't get in, I'm not going to bother. I was driving up and down the country like 10, 12 times applying to get in. And it's great to hear that you were still doing that. But do you agree, probably a closed question, have you found that to be the case with other people, or have you found people getting in now are like, oh, you have applied everywhere?
Again, my course intake, 20 of us on that course, and with the greatest of respect, the people on there, I felt as if I was in the minority of people that were dead passionate about the job.
Yeah.
I mean, previously, obviously, I'd been on call prior to that university, so that made a big difference. My dad was a firefighter as well, so that made a big difference. I sort of, I've got to put it down to the fact that a little bit of his sweat, maybe, in terms of I had a kind of an understanding, and I knew I wanted to do it. People in my course, I mean, there's some people on there that literally said, I seen the advertisement. I heard the pension were good. I heard that you work 2 days and 2 nights.
Thought
and
just
4
have a
days
crack.
off. And that, and that were it. That's all it took. And rightly so, we all passed out. They were still good at the job. They're still good at training school. It wasn't if we were sort of carrying dead weight, but it felt to me again, as something that is sort of my dream and I really wanted that career. It was kind of a bit like, I've really tried for this. Like Zoe came with me. We went to, at one point I was applying for London, and I read all these
dragged
things
that
online.
poor girl around everywhere with you. She's got shit to do.
Zoe,
she's got a life.
Fair play to her. She's
Dragged a southerner up north.
Yeah, well, that's a new part of the story you could tell a bit later on. But like you said, I literally went everywhere, and I took Zoe to London one day to go to Wimbledon, because Wimbledon had open day, and I read online that at this open day there was going to be like a recruitment sort of session or meet and greet sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we turn up dead early before it starts, try to find this fire station. Bearing in mind I'm a bit of a country bumpkin, so going around the city probably weren't the easiest thing for me. So we get there, and so I was like, okay, so where's this stand then? And we're looking around, and there's some trucks there, and there's nothing official. And we're there for about an hour, just, having a nosy around, hearing what's going on. And Zoe said, like, do you think you're in the right place? And I was like, I don't think anything's happening here. So what are you going to do? I was like, well, I'm just going to, summon some courage from somewhere and just find the highest ranking person I could see how much is on the shoulder, and just go up and talk to them. And that's what I did. And off the back of that, this lady, again, I think I spoke to like an area manager, which I think in London it's all different. They like borough commanders and everything else. But the equivalent in sort of old money is an area manager, as I know it.
Yeah.
And thought nothing of it. And then a few weeks later, she gave me an email of a station manager, and fair play to the station manager. He, coached me quite a lot, gave me some advice applying to any fire service, not just London. So it was great. It was one of them situations where I really put myself out there, and thankfully it paid off.
That's
he gave me some great advice.
I always say shy kids don't get sweets. Do you know what I mean? I always say to my daughter, the biggest thing that I think we don't teach at schools now is A, public speaking, and B, just confidence. Confidence. Developing that self-confidence is so essential. Now, Zoe, you said you met at university. So I wanted to ask you, do paramedics still require a degree to be a paramedic, Zoe?
So when I was doing it, I qualified with a foundation, and it's just recently changed. You now have to have a degree, which is 3 years.
Yeah.
That's just changed, yeah.
Do you think that makes it better or worse?
Oh, so I have this conversation all the time in my crews, and personally, I think you should work your way through the service. I think you should you should have some experience. So I worked in dementia care homes for a while. I worked with kids with disabilities, and that was my foundation. If you can't communicate as a paramedic, you might as well go home.
Communication, love it.
So patient transport's a good place to start. And I did my training in West Midlands, and there was a student paramedic pathway, and you worked and you were paid by them. And then when you were ready, you can go up and be a paramedic. Yeah. Now it's very much degree, which could be good, could be bad, but 18-year-olds are coming straight out of school without having their first job, being put into 3 years of uni, being put on the road and going, whoa, you're not supposed to see that stuff at that age.
No.
And obviously some people aren't emotionally mature enough, but I couldn't have done it at 18. There's no way.
Because I think when you said about you work with like EMTs, or I apologise if I get the name wrong, care technicians, sorry. Some of them are like, have been doing it before you were born and all that sort of stuff. Some don't want to, but also for those that do, for those that, like you say, have been maybe in there 6-7 years and they've got a bit of experience, and now they're like, you know what? I want to go for it. I want to develop myself. I'm going to go and be a paramedic. And now they've brought in this degree aspect. I'm not against development. And I do loads of personal development. I'm always taking courses, keep failing on, but after I'd keep going for them as part of the process. But it does act as a bit of a barrier. And I agree that we want people at a higher level of, as in they have the capacity to, because I always think a degree is fantastic. I don't have a degree, but it proves you have the capacity to assimilate a large chunk of knowledge in a set period of time, is my personal interpretation. Because some people will get a degree in something that's completely irrelevant to the field they're actually operating in, but it shows that you can learn. You can learn to a great degree. But you made a fantastic point about communication. We had a previous guest who said the worst thing we're getting now is firefighters going from mama's house to the firehouse. And you excuse the sexist thing there, but they're not getting that character building stuff. I mean, you said there you worked in a care home, Zoe, and yeah, there'll be lots of nice stuff, but every now and again you'll also get somebody point their finger in your face and go, you're an FYZ, I hate you, you're shit, go away. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that is shocking, of course, but it's also character building. And also, care assistants have to do some pretty nasty tasks at times. So how do you think that sort of character building has helped prepare you for what you do now?
Massively, absolutely massively. It sounds awful, but lovely things you see. You also see a lot of horrible stuff, and you've got to have a backbone. Like they say now, being a paramedic, the average age, you do 5 years in a job and then you're out. That's what they expect a paramedic to be.
That's
so
scary.
It's 5 years, yeah, and that's all around the UK. And I think there is definitely a problem with how people are being employed, and unfortunately, because the NHS is struggling, to be a paramedic now, you pay for that degree and you'll get a job. Yeah. So you can go through the service, but for them to fund you, like those places are like gold. Yeah. And amazing ECAs that should be on the para courses aren't because they can't afford it, where you can come in straight out of school, get a student loan and be on the course. And they love it because you're a free paramedic to them. Basically, they've not paid for any of your training.
Yeah, I know. It's like they're getting a paramedic on the cheap, and we need people like that, but we need them now more than ever. Which kind of brings me on to the controversial pay aspect now. So, in order to qualify to be band 5, do they start band 5 paramedics? Is that right? So band 5 paramedics on average earn 21k across the UK on average. Some a little bit more.
24.
24, maybe 24 where you are or wherever. Are relying so much on goodwill and desire for people to actually come and help the public service, because 24k is a great sum of money, but we see like the HGV craziness that's happening now. But we need HGV drivers. I don't know if Matt received an email. I got an email saying, come
call up.
Yeah, I did too. I considered it.
And you're like, what? It was from the DVLA, wasn't it?
DVLA.
What the hell? Because I thought like spam and whatever. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is actually real. The DVLA are emailing people saying we need HGV drivers, and then they're saying, they start an average of 40k. Now, I heard somebody on a radio thing. And we're not throwing salt at anybody. We don't do that on the podcast. But they were like, we are considered the knights of the highway or something. I was like, really? Come on. Let's steady. Because we need people to do it. They're the bloodstream of our economy, and I get that. But when your average paramedic, and people need to stack shelves, people need to stamp stuff at the post office. These jobs are all essential, and we're not in mandatory service. Nobody's forced Matt to be, nobody's forced Zoe to be a paramedic. I get that, but we've had all the NHS stuff. We've had all the clap for everybody. But our paramedics coming in at 24. I mean, do you have a degree, Matt? Did you get a degree out there?
I do, yeah.
Yeah?
I did. I managed to get one. They gave me it.
You didn't wrestle it out of their fingertips. You didn't need it.
No.
I mean, it's great that you've got it.
I didn't need it. I didn't need it.
And in that respect, what firefighters, I think I wrote down earlier, on average, think the recruits start at 23, and then you pass your development, and it goes up to an average of sort of 26, 27 across the UK. Is that roughly what you're seeing?
Yes, I think when I was at training school, I was paid something like 20. It came out of like 22,500 a year. That was the salary you would accrue.
Yeah.
And then when I was in development, it was 23.5, and then we got this like 2% pay rise, so it's about 24.
Yeah.
And then when you're competent, it goes to 31,000 something now. Obviously, with all the pay increases in that, so it's a huge increase, £7,000.
So I think collectively everybody agrees, or at least they say. I always feel like these say-do gaps, as in the gap between what we say and what we do. Because everyone says, we should pay our frontline workers more and more and more. And the fire service and the unions are always banging the drum and stuff like that. However, you've got your average firefighter on 31 and your paramedics coming in at 24 to 26. And you don't need a degree to be a firefighter. So how do you think, Matt, how can we as firefighters justify that we need more pay when, a paramedic's out on the front line every single day, they're not having rest, they're not having longest careers. controversial question. Hence why I'm specifically asking you with Zoe sat next to you. I'd love to, I mean, we all think we should be acknowledged a little bit more. And we're not like, oh God, don't you appreciate what I do? But it's we're both out there doing it, and we're not moaning about doing it. But it just has a bad feeling sometimes. What do you reckon?
It's one of them things. I remember being, again, when in development, the watch I was on they're quite old, a lot of old boys, to be fair. All could be my dad. Well, it was a great experience for me, and one of the old boys came out with a saying that we're talking about pay in the union and pay increases, and he said, I'm not paid for what to do, I'm paid for what I'm prepared to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fair point. Yeah. And it's one of them things where I think, oh yeah, sometimes I'm really, I mean, I'm incredibly grateful to do the job, number one. I mean, I'd probably do this job for free if I could afford to do it.
Yeah.
I really would. I love it to pieces, but the fact to get paid for it is even better.
It's a scream, isn't it?
But it's one of them things where, it's some days I go to work and think, can't believe they're paying me to do this. Yeah. And there's other days where you sort of get, a nasty job, a nasty fatal, and it's like, that's when you kind of earn your money. But the biggest thing to me that I think, worth a lot of money is when you talk about hazmat and radiation jobs.
Yeah.
And you think about the amount of radiation you might absorb, or, touch wood, it's not really happened, but you think of things like Chernobyl, again, massive disaster, but loads of, 25 fighters died from radiation sickness there. And you think the reality of it is, if that goes down, me and you are going to that, nobody else is. Yeah. And at that point,
we all run away. You're the only guys that run towards it. We will wait until it's safe. Where you go.
Which is the kind of, that's
Zoe being so nice. God damn.
I know, she's so supportive.
I love it.
Got to get this brownie
She's putting it on, isn't she? Do you know what, mate? I agree with you, but also I would raise, only because I've had there's a great friend of mine runs a page called Stoke and Vent, and the carcinogens, mate. So we're going to have the FBU on at some point.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the bullet, brother. That is the sleeping.
Yeah.
That is the sleeping silent killer. We're rocking 100%. Around with our bloody tunics open, giving it big time hero style, and we're going to laugh ourselves into an early grave. And the thing is, it's the sort of thing that is not going to come up for 20 years after you've left, or even 10 years after you've left. And
it creeps.
It's the creeping death. That's the price we're eventually going to pay. Zoe, how did you first meet? Come on,
story one.
No, you're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to talk for this bit. I want to hear Zoe's version first. Because Matt will be like, right, I walked up right, and I said to her, right, right, yeah, of course you did, mate.
Oh, funny story. So it was my first degree at university, student night out, theme was superheroes. I was dressed as Mrs. Incredible. Matt's friend bought me a drink, told me Matt was an idiot. I thought, yeah, fair enough. We never saw each other again, did we? And then we kept seeing each other. Friend zoned. And then I kept seeing him, and I finally let him in.
So you met him he wasn't already... How long after you knew him, how many seconds after meeting him did he tell you he was going to be a firefighter?
Yeah.
do you know I'm going to be a firefighter, yeah?
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? He wasn't in the fire service when you first met him, no?
No. I was still playing rugby, trying to be a big shot.
Talk to me about the rugby. You don't play anymore?
No, I stopped.
Why?
I started playing as soon as I got my whole-time job. As soon as that contract came through and it was signed, that was it. I was done. I was thinking, I'm that person where I could play 1,000 games and be fine, and have one game where it's like, I need to be fine for this one because I'm going to Mars and I will break my leg horrendously, and that'll be it. So I'm that level of luckiness. So as soon as it was signed, I said to Zoe, this is it. I'm done. I'm not risking it. It wasn't like I was going anywhere playing rugby. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of tail end of probably not so successful career, but I thought, this is what I want to do, and I'm happy to hang my boots up and start something fresh. So
yeah. Well, now you've started winning medals in the flipping British Firefighter Challenge anyway. And you're young as well, brother. Yeah. You're still young. So, Zoe, what does it feel like waking up every morning next to a real-life superhero?
I don't sleep next to a mirror.
Do you have to wake up every morning and pinch her and say, Zoe, it's real. I'm really here.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's when we both come off a night shift and Matt's had a full night's sleep and he comes back going, I'm knackered. Do not talk to me about being tired.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, though, I've been quite busy, so you know that. I've been quite busy.
Yeah, true. I'll give you that recently, yeah.
Now, it's a commonly held belief that firefighters were created to ensure that police officers also have heroes they can look up to. But how come neither of you chose to go into something like the police? Did you ever think about it, Zoe? Because I think you have to have a degree to police officer now, don't you?
Yeah, it's going that way. I got a friend in the police, and to be fair, like the amount of abuse she gets is just brutal. And I'm 5'3". Like I'm not going to take on a big bloke that's going to knock me out just by poking me. So I know my talents, and I stick to them. I think I like to talk to people rather than pick up for myself.
Do you know what though? We had some guests on from the States recently, and they have started teaching self-defense to their EMTs and their paramedics. Is there anything you've ever heard anything about, Zoe? Is there of those discussions? Because it is pretty horrific for anybody that lives on the moon or just as blind to what the NHS and you guys and girls do. You do experience some pretty. You say you're only 5'3" and blah blah blah, but you do get some shit. You know, you do get people being pretty nasty at times. It blows my mind. I mean, it's horrible that they do it to the police, but you also kind of understand. Not because the police deserve it, but you know they're there to enforce the law at times. That's the whole point. But you guys are only there to help. So have you ever had those experiences? I mean, I'm not going to name anything specific, but have you ever had that? And have you ever thought to empower yourself with any kind of self-defense? Has it been suggested to you? Yeah,
so we all get trained in that as well.
Do you? Okay.
It's quite big at the moment, yeah. And where I work for, they were just rolling out cameras and they're just bringing it in down Southwest. So we are now having to wear cameras to capture anything. Pros and cons, a lot of people falling against it. Unfortunately, especially with head injuries, drugs, spies, obviously mass, you come across it. And unfortunately, we're the only people that can say that they're medically safe because the police aren't going to just take them off in custody without getting our okay. And most of the time we can't give the okay. But yeah, we do come across it quite a lot. Some areas better than others. So yeah. My friend works in London. She's issued a stab vest.
No way. Jesus.
Yeah, so that's issued, that's in her kit bag and she takes that every day. Luckily, we've not been issued that yet, but we're getting cameras roll out. I think it's the end of the month or next month to capture all that goes on. So yeah, it does happen.
What do you actually get taught in the self-defense? What, I'm not going to ask you to stand up and do a move, but
demonstrations, please.
Demonstrate. No. Is it like create space between you and them, or what sort of stuff do they show you?
A lot of it was about if someone grabs you, how to get away from it.
Okay.
A lot of it is about that. You shouldn't. If you kick out, it should be to defend yourself. It shouldn't be to attack. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, I had some colleagues that were stabbed and it was completely unseen or unexpected. And things like that, you can't really do anything. There's nothing, there was no red flag sort of thing. But yeah, what we're taught really is how to get out of that situation. I had an amazing mentor and he taught me plan your exit before you plan your entrance. And I'll take that till the day I die.
Always
I'll never forget that. And always put the bag
between them and an exit. Yeah, that's always the big one. I was always taught as well.
Yeah,
always keep yourself close to the exit. Never let them get between you and the exit. And most people think, like you say, when they hear self-defense, it's about learning to strike. It's not. It's about getting them off you and create distance and just get away. Do you know what I mean? People say, "Oh, well, that's running away." You're not there to fight anybody. It's about get them off you and create distance. Create distance. Get away. Matt, knowing that Zoe is out there doing that, how do you rationalize that in your brain? Because you guys. You're a young couple, deeply in love. You're clearly punching way out of your league. Yeah. Are you ever, do you worry about Zoe?
I mean,
no.
She's fast at best of times, so I think she'll handle herself. I don't think I'm worried about her waking me whilst I'm in bed at work. Okay. No, not at all. No. To be fair, yeah, I do. It's one of them things where, obviously, being in the fire service, you kind of have an understanding, and talking to Zoe, about jobs, you kind of have an understanding of what she goes to, and she definitely deals with some less kind individuals and probably more, evilly motivated individuals sort of in our society. So I'm always aware of that and, wary of what she might, situation she might come across or she might find herself in. And, she's definitely got, I know she can look after herself. And I know that most people that she'll work with, will want to look after her, and it'll be a good team sort of unity. So I do worry about it, but hopefully, well, I know she'll be all right. Touch wood.
No, absolutely. It's just it's sad and scary that it gets to that kind of point, because society's spectrum has just gotten massive. There always used to be like the rich and the poor, or the people who were educated and not educated. But now the spectrum is massive. There are people that are both socially, economically, financially broken. Like their values, their comprehension of right and wrong, because right and wrong is just an opinion, and some people have just they've been indoctrinated, or they've had it handed down to them. You look at that nature and nurture aspect. They've been raised by a family, and then raised by a family, and the detachment from society gets purer and purer and purer as it goes down the generations. And then you come across some people now in their 18s, 25s, whatever, and they're just. It's just like you can't even think to hold a connection with that person, because they are just so detached from what you consider to be acceptable behaviour.
You can't reason with them as well. Like, it's just sometimes you try and build that rapport, and you think, where are you in your thought process? Yeah,
you want to try and create that connection, don't you? And you just think, what?
You can't do it. I know, like, speaking to Zoe, sort of, over the last 2 years of COVID and bits and bobs like that she's definitely encountered some people where it's just, you can't believe what they're saying. They're sort of coming up to Zoe, sort of saying that, you're spreading COVID, where's your mask? While simultaneously being out of the face and probably out in the lash in town, not wearing a mask, socialising with the people. It's just that really, like you said, a really strange divide between, it's not even like black and white, do you know what I mean? It's shades of grey now as to what's right, wrong, and indifferent. So,
And it almost feels like people are more interested in that than allowing people to do their job sometimes.
Yeah, I think the era of sort of social media and getting your camera out. I mean, it's sad that on my training course, there was a whole day sort of dedicated to social media, do's and don'ts. And most of that was kind of avoiding, if you go to an incident and someone whacks out a camera phone, what to say, what not to say, how to address it. And it's kind of, it was an realization, so you think, some people just want to capture things because, it's crazy. It looks like it's from the movies, and you can't really do too much about that. But at the same time, in the back of your mind, there's always someone, what sort of angle is someone trying to take by recording you or taking photos? What they're trying to do.
What did they tell you to say if you get questioned by people who know got their cameras on?
It's kind of like deny almost.
Don't do that.
What's happening here? Nothing. It was more, is essentially if there has been a fatality, or if there has been anything of significance, it's essentially like a politician trying to talk around the subject. You know fully well what they're trying to get from you, and you know what question they've asked you, and you're trying your best to sort of go around the garden first and sort of get to a stage where they're going to be bored of you talking, or you say it so fast and walk away that somebody else is going to deal with it. But most of it will just, we're not entirely sure what's happened here. There has been a fire, but we're not entirely sure what's caused it, or, we're not sure. Some people might have been injured, but if someone's died, you're not saying, well, yeah, Frank's dead. He set fire to his toaster and he inhaled the smoke and he died. It's not. Yeah. That was kind of what they said to us. Avoid it as best you can and push it on.
Yeah, so ours was very much, sorry, we're dealing with it now, we can't talk. Ours was very like, don't say anything, don't even entertain it. Yeah, sorry, we're dealing with it now, can't talk. Yeah. Or we get loads of people come up to the ambulance, who's inside, what's going on? But patient confidentiality, we cannot tell them anything.
No. Yeah. And I think they probably get that more with what you do. With the fire service, well, there's always someone...
You can see it.
You can see
It's a bit hard, isn't it? Yeah. What's that? It's a fire, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Just follow the smoke.
Yeah, we close the door.
Zoe, what made you want to become a paramedic? You say you worked, in the care sector for a while, but what made you want to be a paramedic? Had you always wanted to do it, or where did it come from?
No, so I was really late. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I like the problem solving, but most importantly, I love working with people. Absolutely love it, and that I did that from the age of 16 all the way up. My mum owns her own company working with people with disabilities.
Wow.
We had ambulances out often, saw how they worked. And it was also, to be honest, watching Matt, when he come back and goes into this job, he's done this. For my inspiration.
Dick.
Come on now.
Yeah, I never thought I was smart enough to be a paramedic. I'm very hands-on rather than academic. But you get to a stage in life, don't you? You think if you want something bad enough, you're going to work for it. And that's exactly what I did. I was completely self-funded. I hated writing, hated essays, but because I was so passionate about it and I loved it, and I knew me studying hard or me doing that extra activity or whatever is going to help save someone, be it my family or whoever's family. Yeah, it was passion.
What made you think you weren't smart enough? Because you clearly are. Like you say, you're a great communicator. You seem quite gregarious. Why? What was that? You know, in a lack of belief, lack of self-confidence. Where did that come from?
That's just being a female, lack of confidence, isn't it? No. You got to be so book smart. I think, especially now, being a paramedic isn't just about being on the truck. A lot of paramedics can go on and be critical care, heart, a lot of going in and becoming prescribers, working in GP surgeries and things like that. And medical, I never thought I'd be able to do anything like that. Yeah. But really, it's pattern recognition and problem solving, and those are two things that I really enjoy doing. And I think it's a job that it's not like at school you can go do some work experience. It's something that you don't know until you're really in it.
Yeah.
So it is trial and error. I wish I did it sooner, but then again, I needed that maturity, that life experience. I think if you want something that bad, you'll get it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who, to paraphrase yourself, feel like they struggle academically or the reading or the writing, stuff like that. There's a great quote where judge a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree. It'll live its life thinking that it's stupid. And we've got an education system. I'm not going to bat my sister's a teacher. She's great at it and all that sort of stuff. But we have an education system that was designed to feed people into factory work 30, 40 years ago. You know, we are not in that space now. And certainly for roles that you do and that we do, you need to be a really effective communicator, especially for somebody like yourself. I mean, for the fire service, it helps for all firefighters, absolutely. But certainly when you start getting to incident commanders and stuff like that, you've got to be able to instantly build rapport, get a quick transaction and get some critical information out of somebody and try to disseminate that effectively and motivate people and pull them through things. So you've got to be a great communicator. I always say that one of the biggest things I think facing the emergency services, the biggest challenges is ironically really well educated, really driven, really smart people with a fixed mindset that have not got the ability to just widen their mind outside of the academic book and see that doesn't always transition, it doesn't always correlate, it doesn't lend itself. There's no crossover straight away to the actual job. Like you say, yes, you can know the books, but you know what? If you needed to find out the information, you could quickly probably pull it up on your tough book. Even for great firefighters, they've always got their SOPs or their NOGs or whatever aren't too far away. You've got to be able to communicate with people. And I don't see that being taught as much. I mean, have you always been talkative and gregarious, Zoe? And do you think that's common in the job?
I could talk for England, me. I'll talk to anyone. Just sit me on a bus and I'll get to know everyone around me, no problem. But yeah, and I don't think it's made as important focus at the moment. It's all about academic, things like that. My foundation degree was really pushing me to go into medicine, go into this, rather than the practical skills. And at the end of the day, without the practical skills, where are you?
Yeah, absolutely. You see a lot of firefighters fall back on that as well. They'll be able to tell you the length and breadth and how heavy a piece of equipment is, and then you're like, "Can you use it?" And they're like, "Oh, it weighs 17.3 kilos and it crushes at 560 psi." Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
That's the kind of thing, isn't it? Like, funnily enough, I was talking to Zoe about this the other day, because I can perfectly, from doing all my competencies, I can perfectly recall like a diver 2010 pump and everything to do with it, the whole description perfectly. And I was like, I can remember that. And I've got on our watch as a new recruit now, I think, I could go through pumps, that'd be great and it'd be fantastic. But I thought, actually, should probably make sure he can use the pump first and knows like the sort of practical firefighter shit. That's probably more important than telling me how much water he can deliver and what it's made of. But
that firemanship gets lost and people don't conceptually understand what the pump is actually doing. What's it actually doing? How is it turning a body? How is it imparting energy into water? What is it? How is it doing it?
What's that process?
Oh, I don't need to know. And you're like, it really does help you if you do understand that for your own safety as much as anything else. But I feel like we're losing that. Sorry, I interrupted you, but carry on.
No, 100% agree with you. It's one of them things where the biggest sort of source of contention, obviously, sort of transferring brigade and sort of going to different brigade. The biggest source of contention I always find is when we sort of talk about like fire suppression techniques, gas cooling, this and that. Yeah. You've got the old school mentality of just put water on it. You've got the newer school thought, we can cool the gases, we can make them contract, we can advance, do all that. And that's great. But at the end of the day, you've got to put water on a fire. And you kind of get some people, again, I was quite fortunate with the sort of experience I had when I dropped on station. But I've seen people try to put fires out by gas cooling it, by just putting pulses at it. And eventually it might go out, but that ain't the most efficient way. And like you said, it's understanding that's a tool in the toolbox.
Zoe, I kind of feel like your job is even more that than ours, because I'm sure there's a generic way that paramedics do it, but how do you go about diagnosing people, and what's your thought process?
Well, that's a good question, really. Because some patients, what you want them to tell you, they'll tell you something completely different or something that's not even true. Yeah. So you become a detective, basically, is what you do. A lot of people think they're experiencing things and they're not quite experiencing things. So it's really difficult to sort of pick out what's there and what's not. I remember being at uni and them explaining a UTI, so a water infection, and they're saying it will look like this, it will smell like this, and you'll know when you see it. And some things you do, you get out there and you be like, yeah, it smells like this, it looks like that, and yeah, it's definitely this. But other things you don't see every day, and you only know what it is until you experience it the first time. And when you see it, you think, right, I'm never going to miss this again. Yeah. So a lot of it's trial and error, a massive amount. You read it in a book and it's so simple. It's this science, symptoms, treatment, but it's never that easy. It's never that easy. You'll be going to a job and it comes through as, I don't know, they're having a stroke or they're having a heart attack, and you turn up and their leg's broken. Yeah. I've been to a gymnastics place and it came through as 2 broken arms. I got there and it's 2 broken legs. You just do not know until you get there.
Also, do you feel like
and
sometimes
you really do have to
people
think on your feet?
They're telling you something they think is wrong, and it's kind of like you're arriving somewhere and theoretically they're taking you by the hand and walking you off into the woods with a story about something that has got nothing to do with what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? They'll start saying, oh yeah, I had something to eat the other day and I never had it before, and then this, and you're actually focusing on something else. You're like, your arm is looking really freaky, or like you've got loads of medication on the side. I'm going to ask you about this medication in a minute because you're going off down a rabbit hole, something completely irrelevant. How do you strike that balance between building rapport, letting them feel listened to, but also in the back of your mind, you've still got that problem solving is ticking over?
The most frequent one that I'm sure all people in the medical industry will say, they'll ask a patient and they say, oh, have you got any medical conditions? And they'll be like, no, not really. And you're like, okay, brilliant. Go hunting around the house and find about 20 medications. Oh, what are you on this one for then? Oh, well, yeah, actually, I've got a pacemaker, or I've got a wooden leg, and actually I'm missing an eye. And you think, oh, right, so you've just got to keep going, ask them the questions, knowing full well that there's probably more to come out. Yeah. And a lot of people will say, yeah, I take the medication, I do everything right, I'm a perfect patient. Yeah. Turns out that there's stacks of boxes in their bedroom under their pillow. Yeah. So listen, well, we're judgmental, aren't we, paramedics? We've got to judge you within the first few seconds.
I know. Matt made a great point earlier about you, and you sort of made the same point about you actually started work during the pandemic. Then you became a paramedic during the pandemic. Is that right? How weird is that? So what a sort of weird start to your career.
Yeah, massively. So my first year, COVID did not exist. And then my second year is when I was qualifying. So I became the COVID cohort. That is what they called me. So yeah, we were straight on the road, full PPE, and it was challenging because all the protocols that you'd learnt before they were being changed overnight. Like we had to be adaptable and quick. I remember waking up and I had to check. We've got a jail pass app, and it was changing every single day to what protocols you should be doing, what's next, and it was fast paced, that's for sure.
Policies changing every single day and stuff like that, and not knowing what you're going to do tomorrow. And how do you feel that's affected your development, and what's it like now transitioning back to it? I suppose are things, I don't want to say getting easier, because I feel like the NHS are just stripped. They are just on their goddamn knees all the time. Does it feel that way? Are they actively recruiting? You said if it's only an average of 5-year career, how on earth do you do succession planning for that? You must just permanently have to recruit.
It's permanent. There's always jobs. Like if you want to be a paramedic, there's no doubt that there'll be a job out there waiting for you today, tomorrow. Unfortunately, we're at our worst stage of the year, so we've got the winter pressures with COVID on top of it. Well, everything that's like COVID at the moment. So it is just chaos out there. I can't lie, and it is only going to get worse. Yeah. But when the sun comes around, it's good.
Yeah,
you have to stay positive.
Did either of you catch the C-bomb at any point? Did you have to sleep in separate rooms? I mean, not when Matt was stinking and all that. That was a whole different conversation. I mean, did you guys have to do any of that craziness, or did how did you navigate your way around it? Because I know my brother-in-law, he had to stay in a different house away from his kids and his missus for 10 days, and it sucks.
Yeah. So I was working, and it was a time where COVID was in, but we weren't wearing masks. We weren't wearing aprons, nothing. We were just going to patients' houses. I was quite fortunate, so I caught it and I was unaware. I think the time I caught it, the only symptoms I had was headache and tired, but that's normal when you work in the NHS. And it was the antibody test that came up positive. We were renting up north then, and you didn't seem to have any signs, but no, so we were fortunate.
It was quite funny because Zoe texted me I don't feel very well, I've got a bit of headache and this and that, and I was like, nah. Don't worry. It's middle of summer, I'm thinking, no, Zoe, you just, you work in an ambulance, you're working flat out, you're just hot.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. And I think
it was March, correct? Not summer.
It was warm. It was warm. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It was warm. But she sort of texted me, and to be fair, I was like, nah, nothing, not a chance. And I think there's probably 2-3 days where she sort of probably didn't feel the best, but maybe a sore throat in the evening. I was still going to work, still doing everything else. And then, like Zoe said, 6 months later, antibody test, positive antibodies. And I was like, oh, shit. Maybe I was wrong. There's me, tough up the lip, come on, get back out of there, But no, it was a bit, maybe she was a bit poorly.
So how did you guys have to navigate around that? What did you have to do?
Oh, well, luckily I didn't know. I think it would have been chaos.
Oh, right. That's good.
I think we kind of just, wow. And one of the things where eventually got stage, we just accept the fact that if we got it, and that was that.
I think everybody in the emergency services has had it, to be honest. I've had a couple of days where I felt rough as hell, and then somewhere I've tried it. I've taken a lateral flow whenever I possibly can, and all that sort of jazz. But I do think, and this is something you hear a few people talk about, and it's not a very popular thing to talk about because it feels kind of elitist. But you guys are both fit and healthy. I do freaking ice baths and stuff every single day. If you're fit, and it's really unpopular thing to say because it feels like you're shaming people that have ruined their bodies and they don't eat very well. Well, yeah, I mean, they kind of knew.
Truth of it.
They knew they couldn't.
So true.
Awkward. Yeah. Sorry. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, should I? No, but it's true, man. Do you know what I mean? You're like,
it is.
Now that it's become relevant, where we're like, hey, if you're fit and healthy, you probably stand a better chance. And people are like, that's not a very fair thing to say, is it? Why is it not? You never accidentally ate anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You didn't.
It's the same with blood pressure, isn't it? Everyone is on blood pressure tablets. And that is something that you can sort. You don't have to be taking them. That is something you can reverse. Like type 2 diabetes, diet control, that is something that you add. But we can't be honest with our patients. And it's the most infuriating thing for me. Back pain. Well, weight and things is a massive contribution to that. But we can't be blunt. Otherwise you get sued or you get
people look
spanked,
for a surgical intervention for stuff. Surgical.
Oh, God, gastric band on it quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, quick fix.
Got another gastric band in here. Crack on with it.
That's what they say, don't they?
It's scary when you say. I wrote a really, really interesting book the other day called Lost Connections by Johan Hari, right? And it talks about depression medication, anti-anxiety medication and stuff like that. And there is some really scary statistics.
What it does.
Sort of stuff. What it does to your body and also how you gauge it. So for example, they measure it on a scale between, so if you go to the GP, there's a recognized scale. It came out in 1948 or something like that. I think it's called the Hutchinson scale, but I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me. And it's measured between 1 and 49 or something like that. And it's 1, I think, is you're ready to jump off a bridge, and 49 is you're the happiest person you've ever met. As a yardstick, for example, you can change your happiness score with good sleep. So good sleep will give you 6 points an improvement on your happiness scale. Just because a lot of people, certainly in the emergency services, we're not getting enough sleep, and that can improve your fulfillment. That can improve your state of well-being. Medication, on average, increases your score by 1.8. It's three times less effective. Yet the counter argument, things like people take antidepressant medication, they experience so much weight gain and stuff like that. And honestly, the big pharma companies that are promoting and sell a lot of this stuff, right? So I think they have to have two successful trials that show a positive indication to the person's life. And if they get 2 successful trials, they can use it, they can sell it. But there's no limit to how many false or how many negative trials. So for example, you could carry out 200 trials, and if not 198 of them didn't show an improvement in the person's condition, then that's absolutely fine. You can still sell it because you've got 2 successful ones. But in order to do that, right, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I will be quick. They have to have people who aren't already diagnosed with depression and that aren't already taking any form of medication. So they have to take them raw, right? It's quite hard to find people like that because most people who have got a little bit of something about them, if they're feeling rubbish already, they've already gone to their GP and they've already got diagnosed and given something. So what they tend to do is they use homeless people because they're not usually in the system.
Wow.
So to do these trials, right, they basically do is they'll go, would you like to take part in a trial? We need to control the trial. So in order to do that, we will pay for you. You'll come and stay in some accommodation. We will clothe and feed you, and we will pay you. And you need to take part in this thing. So if you've taken somebody off the street and they haven't got food and their life sucks, and you're going to take them, you're going to feed them, you're going to clothe them, and they're going to take part, their whole life circumstances is going to improve. So if you ask them at the end of that, how do you feel this trial affected your level of happiness, considering you felt horrific before and you were on the street, they're going to say it's great. And it's so...
You can't lose, can you?
Oh, man, honestly, I could keep going. And also, right, because it's a chemical intervention, it's a little bit like... So I used to take a lot of steroids. When you start taking steroids, you're forcing your body to create testosterone, for a really basic example. If you do it for too long, your own body's natural testosterone switches off. It doesn't create testosterone. That's when you hear the horror stories of erectile dysfunction and people's balls shriveling up and all that sort of stuff. It happens because they take it for too long. You have to come off to let it bounce itself back up. If you take medication that alters your happiness, so that alters your serotonin levels, for example, your own serotonin receptors will stop producing serotonin or whatever they can. I forget. And when it becomes less effective, what they do is they'll increase your dose, or they will change you to another medication. But at no point can you come off it, because once your receptors stop producing it themselves, if you stop taking the medication, you will feel extremely depressed. And it's not surprising because it's not going to start creating it again. And also, they never ask, you guys are speaking there about communication and learning what's changed in the person's life and how they found themselves in this circumstance. It used to be a case that a fatality in your life would be an inhibitor to stop people getting depressed, getting medication. So if, for example, God forbid, Matt died today, and Zoe went to the doctors tomorrow and said, I'm horrifically depressed. Yeah. She would be, obviously. I mean, for like an hour, and then she'd be all right.
Yeah. I wouldn't have to share my food.
Yeah. But she could get prescribed medication tomorrow. They wouldn't necessarily go into the depths. Oh, I'm not trying to scar GPs or anything like that, but there's no longer a scale that says, it used to be if you'd experienced a close fatality in the last 3 months, then you're actually going through a natural grieving process. So that's fine.
Yeah.
What you actually need is a hug and a bit of therapy, maybe, and a bit of counselling, and you can get like 6 free sessions on the NHS. But it's not the case now. So if you experienced a traumatic event in your life, you've separated from a partner, a child has died, or a loved one has died, you can get prescribed medication. And then once you're on it, you never get off it.
Yeah, it's a train you can't come off. It's got no stops, has it? Instead of going for that root cause. And like you said, it's talking. It's talking about problems. And I think both me and Zoe are kind of in that generation where we talk about a lot, to be fair. You sort of see some people, or we know people that they've got X, Y, and Z wrong with them. You're like, how? Yeah. We're like 24, 25. How have we got? And some, don't get me wrong, there's some things that you can't, if someone's diabetic, type 1 diabetic, it is what it is. That's just a genetic, you roll the dice, and unfortunately your pancreas doesn't work as it should. That's the way it is. But then
you can still adapt your life as well, though. You can still adapt your life. I'm not saying you can reverse it. I don't pretend to be an expert in that. But people that do that and then have a horrific life, the way they eat and the way they live, you're like, what are you doing?
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that it's for some people. I think that they want to be diagnosed as something because that's kind of their excuse or their justification. Oh, I'm this way because of X. Exactly.
Look.
And
you don't understand.
Look what's happened to me. This is my excuse as to why I can't do this, or I can't be successful, or I can't have a job, or I'm not what I want to be. And don't get me wrong, like, I've been very fortunate in my life, and I think a lot of that is you kind of. Don't say you make your own luck, but you can definitely influence your luck and by what you do, 100%.
Yeah.
It's one of them things where I wouldn't say, my parents taught me, a tough upbringing, but I would definitely sort of taught if you can have a bad day, that's fine. If a few bad days, that's also fine. Yeah. But it's probably more important to talk about how you feel, and that's definitely something, talking about mine and Zoe's job that we do a lot of.
Yeah.
We talk quite openly about how things are, because I think a lot of blokes are afraid to do that. They're afraid to talk about how they feel, and even that's true in the fire service. Still, some blokes, you go to some nasty things, and I'm there being like, "Well, that was pretty grim," and they're almost kind of like trying to deny, "Oh, it ain't that bad. I've seen worse." Like, it doesn't matter how many bad things you've seen. Like,
and also, it's what we teach our kids the same stuff as well, because you see people, like, if we've had a whole bunch of people in our family die of natural causes mostly, and whenever it happens, there's some people in the family are like, don't talk about it, or like my daughter will go like, "Oh, Granny's dead," and we'll be like, "Yeah," I'll be like, yeah, Granny's dead, isn't it? Yeah. What do you think about it? And some people vilify it. They vilify death, and they're like, you shouldn't talk about it, like it's a secret. And the problem is, if we teach kids that, we teach them that it's bad to communicate, it's bad to talk. We also like tell them to be quiet all the time, and we tell them, "Oh my God!" I mean, I don't know if you saw my daughter at the British Firefighter Challenge. She was running around talking to everybody. She ended up getting a free pair. She got a free pair of boots. Patches. Yeah, she got a free pair of boots. Hey, all right, because people always say to the kids, they're like, "Don't talk to strangers." Everybody's a stranger. Unless everybody is a friend waiting to be spoken to in my world. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But when we say don't talk to strangers, don't talk about bad stuff, don't talk about death, be quiet, don't shout, be polite. And I don't want to be polite, of course, but we do that, and then we create a whole bunch of, and then you stack that on top of social media and the phones and how much we're drawn into that. Communication. And it's kind of like why I love the podcast is I want to show people that it's good to talk about stuff and how rich and interesting. I mean, we've met once, and I was so excited to speak to you guys tonight, and I was just like, I can't wait to ask Zoe about this. I can't wait to ask Matt about that, because then I learned so much. Learning about how Zoe became what she did. Oh gosh, she's a care worker before, and the challenges she's faced during COVID. Oh, Matt's dad was a firefighter. These things. If we teach people not to communicate, we don't realize the damage that we're doing. And then you stack on top of COVID. We're like, stay away from everybody. Don't talk to anybody. My daughter's had 2 years of her life from the ages of 7 to 9, like, of that crucial part of development in COVID. And I'm not saying, oh, woe is me. Do you know what I mean? But I'm worried about what it's going to be like. You guys are quite unique. Yeah. You're both quite young, and you seem really outgoing, gregarious. I mean, you decided to come on a podcast after meeting a guy for once. Most people would be like, I'm not talking to that guy. That guy's weird. He spent the whole day talking to himself on a goddamn microphone. Jesus, no. But Zoe, how I'm not going to ask you any I can ask you children's questions, but how do you teach that? Do we need to keep teaching that? How would you want your children to behave? How were you raised? What is it? Because if we can't articulate it, we're not going to be able to repeat it. Yeah.
So I think people are so worried about death and are so focused on, they're going to die, that they forget to live. You're going to die one day, unfortunately. Yeah. And as British society, funerals are sad. Why are they sad? It should be a celebration of life. If you've done everything you wanted to, and isn't that amazing? Like all those memories you've got with that person, but instead, it's sad, it's depressing, or I've got regret. And I think we focus too much on, we need this quick, we need that. But hard work is how you get to the things, the happiness and the things like that. You need to just concentrate on the living and making the most of every opportunity, because they don't come around often. And if you don't grasp it, they're gone.
And all those happiness things, they're like comparison as well, because if you don't experience the hard time, there's no light without darkness. If you don't experience the hard times, you won't even know what the good times are like. And I love what you said about funerals as well. I'm so morbid, but I love funerals. And you know what I hate about a funeral, actually? When you have a crap person speaking. When you know something about that person, right? And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to hear what gets said about Jeff, Janice, Tracy, whoever, Dave. And you're like, and then somebody gets up and they're just like pants. Do you know what I mean? I would rather.
Don't do it justice.
Yeah, I appreciate it's difficult for the families, and I've spoken at a few funerals, but I think it's probably easier if you get somebody that's loosely attached. I mean, the vicars and stuff. I'm not religious remotely. I don't care where you have a funeral, but whoever the person is organising it, if they're not connected to the family, it's usually best sometimes if they do it because they can say really nice stuff. But if you've got a friend or something like that, it's so important to tell that person's story. I think of that as like, I think of the podcast in the same way. These are like time capsules. I can't wait until 5-10 years time when people listen back to Zoe and Matt, or they listen back to whoever and go, wow, that was back when they started their career. And you create that time capsule. And if we don't remember this stuff, it's just lost forever, and it's so sad in that respect. I love what you say about really appreciating it, though, and a lot of that uncomfortably does come through hard work because you just won't appreciate it otherwise. You've got to fail at stuff. You've got to suck. You've got to have someone shake the finger in your face and go, "You're shit." Do you know what I mean? Because then you'll know to get better.
I think in schools though that's lost. You're not taught to fail and to keep trying. You're told to pick the subjects you're good at. You're told to pick the subjects that you're going to succeed and want to do. But how are you supposed to know at 16 what you want to do? I didn't have a clue. You should be told to go do work experience, go and experience stuff, fail, learn, and get that resilience and keep building. But that you're not taught that.
There's a great book, right, called The Marshmallow Test, and within it they talk about lots of different things. But there's a thing in there where, and we do this with our kids, reward effort, acknowledge outcome. Most people loosely acknowledge effort and they reward outcome. So, for example, if you did a easy maths test with a bunch of kids, and they did this, so this is the example they give in the book. They had, I don't know how many kids, loads of kids. And half of them, everybody did the same test, half of them, they acknowledged the reward. So they went, you got 10 out of 10. You are really smart. You got all the questions right. You're extremely smart. Well done. Yeah. And then the other kids, they would say, wow, you tried really hard on that. Man, you must have tried as hard as you possibly could because you just kept working at that. I mean, you just kept working and kept working. And they rewarded the effort. Then when they gave them a harder test, on the harder test, the children who were rewarded for effort worked for longer, irrespective of the outcome. And the children, obviously, that were rewarded for the outcome didn't work for twice as long. And then when they gave them another test and allowed them to market themselves, you get into this genius complex where you describe somebody as what they believe themselves to be, as in, I am a genius, I get everything right. So when they let the kids market themselves, the children that were rewarded for outcome lied more about the results. They lied to sustain that belief. And then the fourth time, they said, this next one is voluntary. It's a really, really hard one to do. Who would like to do it? And it was something like 80% of the kids that were rewarded for effort chose to do the hard test, and like 70% of the kids that were rewarded for outcome chose not to do it because it would be a threat because they would risk failing. Do you know what I mean? The kids that were rewarded for effort were just like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a go at this. And they work for ages at it. But if you're rewarded only for the outcome, you won't do something that means you might fail because then I'm no longer a genius. And in doing that, we just live forever in our small little comfort zones, and it's scary.
Very scary. Like, so my sort of background at university was like sports science, and I remember sort of doing sports psychology, and they talk about NATch and NAF athletes.
Yeah.
So there's like need to avoid failure, and basically need to achieve, and that's how they sort of break up different. It's a very, very brief overview.
Yeah.
Where it's, when you look around any sort of team environment, you can pick out them people that are just doing enough, they're just doing enough to stay afloat. And there's always them people that are constantly pushing the boundary. It's always interesting to see them people. And like you said, you ask about their upbringing and where they've come from or what they do outside. And the ones that are just floating just tend to just float through life. Like, I do this, I go to the pub, play football on a Sunday. It's very, very, beige. And the ones that are trying to push themselves are trying to do everything. I do skydive, I do this, I do that. Just constantly trying to push themselves. It's the comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I always find them sort of people, or the people that they aren't afraid of failing, and they're there to just take part. And if they get something out of it, great. But they're not bothered. But the ones that want to avoid failure, like you said, will only do things that they know 100% I can pass this. There's no failing for me. Yeah. And that's kind of a sad way to be.
It is. And you get to the extreme example sometimes. You ever played like, you ever been with a bunch of friends, or like you have Christmas or something, and you play like a family game, and the person who's like super serious and the consummate professional won't even play a game if they feel like they're going to look silly. They'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. Or I I can't dance, or I can't do charades, or I can't whatever. And you're like, dude, it doesn't matter. Just have a go. Don't fucking worry about it. It's just a laugh. Just take part. Yeah. Just if you look like a dick as well, it'll be funny, and you'll learn something, and everyone else will have a laugh, and they will connect more with you. You know, show your cracks. Yeah. You know, that's how people can connect with you. We said a lot there about health and fitness and all that sort of healthy stuff. So, how do you guys do that for yourselves? Do you obviously, Matt, you do all kinds of exercise and stuff like that, but let's both be brutally honest. You know, Zoe's the really good looking one in the team. So how do you guys sustain that? But you're both young, so you've got the social aspect. I know you attended a friend's wedding the other day. How do you strike that balance, especially because you both work in stressful jobs? You know, some people, they want that release, they want that dopamine hit, they want to get home and just smash the takeaway every night. So how do you navigate that?
I think the biggest one we did is we bought ourselves our own gym. So in our garage, we've got a little cage and set up, and that's where we train now, to be fair. I think COVID was a big... I always sort of said, again, like, my degree's in strength and conditioning, so going to the gym is just... it's part of me, really. And I think that kind of is something Zoe both appreciates and also hates at the same time, as I can see her smirking.
Rolling her eyes. He doesn't like try and train you all the time, does he, Zoe? You're doing it wrong. I told you do set of 12 and you did a set of... He's not that guy, is he?
No, he's pretty good. He does all my programs. But I didn't have that appreciation, I don't think, before I met Matt. Like, I was doing sport and being active because I enjoyed it. And it wasn't until I met Matt that I thought actually it's so important for other reasons as well. Like my mood when I fell down. I find it so hard. I'm coming off like 3 nights. Yeah. And I could easily just sit there. And Matt would be like, come on, let's go for a walk. Let's go do something. Let's go train. And I just feel like a different person after. So yeah, I've really got that appreciation for it. And now it's like, I need it. I've got to do it.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I need to wait till I feel motivated to do it. And like you say, when you come off the night stuff, you're just not motivated. I always say to people, you've just got to get started. Motivation may or may not show up along the way. Likely it will, but the body can lead the mind as much as the mind can lead the body as well. So if you just start tapping into those anchors, i.e. doing those movement patterns, getting in the environment, like you say, just going into the garage, going into the gym, putting the clothes on that you usually exercise in, get all of those things on the go, and then your body will recognize the pattern and it will slip into it.
Like I always say, I do a little bit of training alongside. It's sort of a side hustle, sort of personal training people and programming for other people. And my big sort of sale is motivation gets you going, so that gets you to the gym. And as mentioned before about discipline, discipline is what keeps you going. Discipline is doing the hard yards even when you don't feel like doing it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can say for myself in terms of especially sort of my fitness training and my strength and conditioning is that I'm just disciplined. I just have kind of an addictive personality, the best ADHD, so I can't sit still anyway. But I've got that kind of mindset. When it's in my head, I've got to do it. So training for me is just a lifestyle. It's what I do. It's a part of my day, and it makes me feel better for it. And not doing it, as Zoe can definitely say, I don't know. I just feel unfulfilled. Fulfilled, like I've not quite done everything I can that day, sort of thing. And
it's your identity. That's what it is. I mean, it's your identity.
Yeah, it is.
People have that where they're like. But they talk about even discipline and willpower doesn't work. You know, willpower is a load of BS. People have to switch their identity because your identity is where your anchor is. So like I identify as a fit, healthy guy. I'm a fit, healthy, strong guy. So I wouldn't do something that doesn't correlate with that because it's not my identity. And it helps me in my mind to make things really extreme in my mind. I don't necessarily do it to other people because it's a bit harsh. But like for me, honestly, if somebody wants to encourage me to do something outside of my usual fit and healthy lifestyle, it makes it so easy if I just make it extreme in my mind. For me, it's the same as if I sat down and somebody said, Pete, do you want a cigarette? I'd be like, no, I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. Yeah. So I don't want a cigarette. And it's exactly the same if somebody asks me if I want to partake in something that is not going to be in the best interests of my mind or my body or my development, or is not going to put me around the right sort of people. It removes the choice. And that is so hard for people. Even when like Zoe was talking about confidence and stuff like that, if people, you've got to be so careful with your own identity. If people identify themselves as something, they will always gravitate back to it. So for example, if somebody believes they're a fat person, then they will think, I'm a fat person that's trying to get fit. You know what? You weren't born unhealthy. You weren't born scared. You weren't born with low confidence or anything like that. So you can say, I'm a fit, healthy, active, gregarious, interesting, smart, intelligent, driven person who has just lost their way. But my anchor is I am a fit, healthy, strong person. You know, that's everything else I've learned, and I can just relearn it. But you're going to have to fracture that aspect that you've brought up with, because you eventually get to like 20, 25, 30, and your mind and your beliefs and stuff like that have started to form quite strong. It's like concrete, but you've not had the right ingredients. You made concrete and you've accidentally made it with a sponge, 17 donuts, some negative beliefs, and some toxic input from your environment, from the people you were brought up around. You're going to have to break it. It's hard to remold concrete when it's made. You're going to have to break it. People always say, I want to break out, I want to break through. You've got to break. You're going to have to break something. And it's usually those beliefs that you're going to have to shatter. You can't. They're so imprisoning. I struggle with it, you know, and like you say, with having that addictive personality, I just can't let go.
No, it's one of the things. Sometimes I work with people that say, "Oh, you know, I was never that sporty kid in school. I was never that good at PE." I'm like, great, irrelevant of that. I'm not going to make you go and play volleyball or golf. You're going to go run. You're going to go lift some weights. And it's that kind of. Someone said to me, once you've run out of excuses, you realise it's time to grow up and sort of let go of, like you said, you know, that sort of negative environment you might have grown up in, or the boxes people put you in. Yeah. Because, you know, talking about school and what you go through, like, I mean, Zoe can testify this as well. Me and Zoe spoke about, you know, when we're growing up and this and that. And Zoe was always kind of put in the box as like creative person, which is probably, again, I'm speaking on Zoe's behalf, why she probably thought that she wasn't smart to be a paramedic, but Zoe is one of the most dedicated people I've ever met. Do you know what I mean? Like, she applies herself 10 times more than me at all, and is by far much smarter than me. Yeah. Like, without a second of a doubt. That was Zoe's box. Zoe's was the creative one that was massive into dancing, a phenomenal dancer, great. You know, that was her thing. And for me, my box was sport. I was a big lad. I could lift weights. I ran. So that was my box. And that was what I was good at. And I was all right at science. So that kind of fit my mold. But, you know, if I hadn't sort of, we spoke before, like you pick your GCSE so early on, that is putting you in that box. Yeah. And it's just like, now I'm a grown up. You can realise that you can break them boxes. Now I'm considered a grown up. You kind of realise that you can break them boxes. Them boxes, you know, they were temporary things that people used to sort of create a social hierarchy, and that doesn't exist anymore. You're an adult. You can be whoever you want to be. And I think, like I said, when you sort of grow up, you realise, you know, it's time to grow up. Yeah, that's not there anymore, and you can, you know, re-engineer and reinvent yourself, and there's nothing stopping people from doing that, apart from probably their own sort of preconceived conceptions of who they are and how they should be. And I think it's just that confidence again to just go, fuck it, I'm going to be something new. And if people don't like it, they don't like it, and you can spend a long time feeling sorry for yourself and making excuses, but it comes a time when you've just got to break, like you said, break through the mold, break through that shadow of who you are, and be you want to be.
How do you strike that balance, Zoe? How do you, because you're still, obviously, you're new in your career now, you're still doing loads of different aspects of personal development. What's your thoughts on those beliefs? Is there anything you've had to struggle with, or what do you see when you hear, you know, Matt speaking like that? Is it just me and him high-fiving each other in bravado, or is there any truth in the waffle that we speak?
Yeah, maybe it's just waffle. No, not at all. I've struggled in my life to get the balance right. I really have, and I'm still learning. So every day I'm learning. We always say, me and Matt, the glue of our relationship and the glue of our life is the Google Calendar. Yeah, we put everything on that calendar, and it's silly things like training, whatever. Like, we live such a hectic life, and I'd love to do more CPD, and I really want to keep climbing. And some weeks I get it right, and some weeks I don't. And it's just to keep going and keep supporting each other, I think, is massive. Because when you're doubting yourself, it's always nice to have someone back in your corner. Yeah. But yeah, it is. We live off our calendar, don't we?
Yeah, it's kind of the crux of. I say we. I think Zoe inputs most of it, and I'm sort of told, like, look at the calendar. Just mate, look. See what's on it.
I'm more like Zoe than like you in that respect, honestly. Yeah. I mean, my wife is really good. But she has a better memory than me as well. Maybe you have a better memory than Zoe. I don't know. But for me, I always feel like my secret superpower is being present. So I am always trying to be present with people, and the way I do that is by not having stuff in my head. So I make lots of lists, and everything is in the calendar. So when people say, "Oh, when are you next at work?" I'm like, I don't know. Next week at some point. I'll have a look. I don't know until the night before, and I'm like, oh, better get my bag ready for tomorrow. You know, all of the stuff, the horses stuff, the kids stuff, the holiday company stuff, the podcast stuff, everything is. We've got like for all the clients, everything goes into the diary. It has to be in there. Otherwise, even me picking my daughter up from school has to be in the diary. And it's not. It's people think, oh well, if you cared enough, you'd be there. It's not like that. It really is. I'm not saying it's like a mental condition. I'm not looking for a badge, but I know I get so excited. I'm like a kid. I'm so excited and passionate when I'm speaking with people. When I'm in a moment, that time will get away from me. But I'd rather be like that, because the cost of not being like that is just detachment. It's just you're never really there. You know, you're not present. You're somewhere else. You know, and you
become a machine almost.
Yeah, we know what it's like when we're around people like that, and you're just like, be here with me, or just leave, you know, one or the other. And you've got to be that brutal, because it sounds so sad, but if you can't, you guys are big into, you know, acknowledging if something's not working, pushing each other, holding each other accountable, being super honest with each other. But that is so rare. It's so rare. Me and my wife took ages to work on that. She came from a really violent relationship before me, so there were so many things that had been embedded into her mind that we had to collectively try and unstitch and work our way around. But for some people, I'm lucky that my wife recognized that and wanted to change and wanted to make things better for herself. But some people don't. It's scary. And if you can't change the people you're around, if you can't help them change, if you can't change the people, then you have to change the people you're around. They can either come with you on this own journey of self-discovery, because people grow at different levels. And if someone's going through a growth surge, mentally, physically, personal development, whatever it may be, if the other person's not, it's like an elastic band. It can stretch so far. And if that person's growing and going, the other person will either try and hold the other one back, or the band will snap. If you're not both challenging yourselves and encouraging each other to have your own adventures and stuff like that. I always say I want to be, I'm front row for my wife, cheering her on. I don't just want a cheerleader in my life supporting me. It's wonderful to be supported, but I want to support you as well. You know, I see so much in you two as well, where, you know, I mean, Matt, hearing you talk about Zoe then, it just, you know, I felt all from gooey inside. You know what I mean? You're so proud of what she does, and she recognizes you, and you're her hero, and you're a champion, and all that sort of stuff. People will hear this. People may have tuned in. It's tuned out. Some people, you know, because they'll be like, oh, and often it's because
too much.
It feels like it's too much, or secretly, a little bit like when you see somebody going for it. What actually happens is that person is accidentally shining a massive light on what you don't have. Like when Zoe says, oh, you know, I'm going to go for it. I'm finally going to go for it. I'm going to go try and become a paramedic. And there'll be people working in the care sector with her, no doubt. You know, I'm speaking in the third person. Sorry. No doubt been people in the care sector with you who probably wanted to do the same thing, but they never thought they could, or they had that same thing of, I don't believe in myself. And then when you start going for it, some people will try and hold you back. Some people will support you. But for some people, your sheer presence makes them feel uncomfortable because you're going for it. How has that ever cost you anything, Zoe? Have you ever had to have those conversations, or be around people who just, they thought they were with you, or thought they supported you, or thought they were your friend, and they just, as soon as you started going for it, they just seemed to do nothing but throw stones?
Yeah, massively. Although, like, I'm Matt's biggest supporter, without question. We've been together for 5 years, and we didn't get it right at the start of our relationship. It was very much, we were that elastic band, and we weren't supporting each other. And it got to a stage where, if you're with someone and they're not making you a better person, then it sounds bad, but what are they adding to your life? And we weren't at one stage, and it took us like a massive turn, didn't it? And it thought, hang on, we've got to work this out. And I wouldn't change it now for the world, because I'm a better person without question for it. But we were that elastic band, pinging each other every day. It was a nightmare. And now it's actually like, well, we bring each other up, and that's what's so important, I think.
It is so important, and you should never lose sight of that, because that is so crucial. And you've almost got to constantly recalibrate to make sure that you're there for each other and you're giving each other the right sort of attention. Right, couples questions. Who eats the healthiest?
Oh, Matt. Oh no!
Yeah, Matt, I don't know.
Matt, and I'm sure he won't mind you saying, but Matt is a fat kid. Like, if he did not train the amount, he would be a beast. But he'll have a donut and then he'll be straight on the treadmill doing or a WOD or whatever.
Yeah.
But really, if he wasn't working out, he'd be a beast.
Yeah, I mean, at heart, like for example, the wedding we went to 2 days ago, I was quite fortunate the people I was sat with weren't big eaters, and I am. So it was great. I mean, it was great until I think I had a lot of starter, 3 mains, and 3 puddings, and I was.
It was a conveyor belt, wasn't it?
It was great. It was great, and it reached a point.
Leave me alone, I'm bulking.
Yeah, I mean, I can't make that excuse. I literally looked at Zoe, and she was like, "Just have it." I'm like, no, I can't. She's like, no, just have it. Like, no, I physically can't. I've ate way too much. My stomach's killing. We're still drinking alcohol. I'm thinking the gas is going to go up. It weren't pleasant. But I can't see food get thrown away. I don't know if it's growing up in my childhood or what. But
no.
I couldn't let it go.
I was gonna. You have got you got a slice of pizza on your collar, mate. I didn't want to mention it earlier, but I was just throwing there now. I didn't know if it was a shirt at first. Who is the most driven?
Oh, I've got to answer this. I say Matt. I have good days and bad days, but you are almost OCD. I've always envied that. Okay. Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't know. I'd say Zoe's though. So maybe that's a nice thing.
That is a beautiful thing. Who do you think's the most social?
Again,
I
think we're...
No, come on, stop earning your brownie points. You could talk for England.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of them things where, obviously me and Zoe were before we've moved and sort of bought a home in Gloucestershire, which is obviously where me and Zoe met, and Zoe's a Cheltenham lady originally, and I'm from sort of South Derbyshire, Northwest Leicestershire. So we moved to South Derbyshire when I was working in Derbyshire, and obviously I think I finished university on the 7th of June. Me and Zoe went away for 6 days, and I started my whole-time course the 40th of June 2018. So I didn't have that sort of uni transition. What a lot of people did was sort of saying goodbye to people, and a lot of my mates, again, were from Wales or London. So all of a sudden, I weren't seeing them anymore. I was at 3 months of training school. So I got used to just messaging people. And in general, the lads went to college with and stuff. A lot of them went to university in Sheffield or Leeds or in London. So I didn't really see them for the 3 years that were away unless we came home. And, that gets harder and harder. So it sort of becomes a stage where I keep in touch with people by messaging. If I can't see them, message them and call them. And
you're very good on your phone where I'll get a text and it will take me about 10 days to reply. I appreciate it there, but me and my phone, I could do without it. But in all honesty, you're really good with it, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I feel as if there's some people in your life, there's people that, not agitators, that's the right word for it, but I like to check in with people. I like to think that I try to sort of allow people to offload and just make sure my mates are doing all right, because I'm kind of fortunate. I've got Zoe and we've got each other and we can offload. But I've got some mates that aren't relationships, and they work long hours or they work offshore, and it's difficult things. It's just giving them the chance, I guess, to have someone, not like a girlfriend, but someone they can offload to.
Absolutely.
Mates, I mean? We could talk about things, and that's the big. Like I said before, that's quite a thing that I sort of openly say, that I'm an open person. I'm happy to talk about anything. There's problems shared, the problems halved, and that's kind of my persona. And especially going into the fire service and being on a watch, and going to some of the nasty things that we go to, it kind of reinforces that to me, that people have lots of different problems, and I just want to make sure that they know they're not alone. That's the thing. There's always someone to talk to, and there's always I'm always prepared to listen.
It's horrible to think of somebody suffering in silence.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing. I had some mates that I was close to uni with, and they sort of after university. I mean, people talk about the uni blues and stuff, that they sort of leave university, and again, me and sort of Zoe were quite fortunate that we had things to go on to, or we had goals to go on to.
No, it's not fortunate. It is fortunate, but I'm going to challenge you there, because that was a choice. You had, but you both chose that. I'm not vilifying the people that didn't, but
no,
the stuff's not going to land on your lap.
No, I agree with you, and it's fortune favours the bold and all that, but some people, probably don't get the result they want from the degree, or they've left things unchecked, and I think it can be quite hard. All of a sudden, you've gone from living where I live, you've got mates that are 5 minutes away. You go to the pub, you go to wherever, and you've got people around you. You're playing rugby with lads twice a week. There's a big social aspect to university, and all of a sudden, a lot of people that they move back home, or or people that stayed in, their mates moved back home, got jobs. All of a sudden, they left there thinking, well, fuck, it's just me.
Yeah.
And what have I got? What have I got to show? And I think that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people, and it's a lot of mates have sort of said to me, I've been struggling, and I didn't want to say that they were depressed, because they probably weren't, but I could definitely tell they were themselves, and it's.
I was
trying to help people
that
help themselves.
You've got to have a plan. I mean, I don't I'm not one of these. Oh, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't fucking know. I don't know what I'll be doing in 10 years. But you've got to be, even if your plan is just the next week, you've got to have a plan for yourself. You can't just keep feeling like, oh, well, I'm just going to keep chilling with my mates, and these are my girls, or these are my boys, and you've got to make a plan. I always say, if you don't make a plan, you'll fit in somebody else's plan. Do you know what I mean? That's horrible, but it's true. Nothing. That is what they've got planned. Not because they don't love you. Not because they're bad people. They are planning their life in some fashion or another, and it can just be as simple as tomorrow I'm going to get up and take the dog for a walk, or tomorrow
little things.
I'm going to write Zoe a poem, or I'm going to just do whatever. Tomorrow I'm going to have a look for where me and Matt can go on holiday next year, or whatever. You've got to be, because we're dopamine animals. We need to have little goals. We need to have little things to look forward to. That's what keeps us going. They're those little reward nuggets that keep us moving forwards.
Yeah, definitely.
Humans definitely need purpose. Humans need a purpose.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. They need to have those short-term, mid-term, tangible goals, things that are going to give them a reason, purpose. Yeah, they've got to have purpose.
Yeah,
they've got to have a reason to get up in the morning. And that, you may, oh geez, you hit me like a lightning bolt. Then when we were talking about that depression book, when I was boring everybody with a depression book. So the one place, and I forget the country, but there's a few places in the world that they weren't successful, that these pharmaceutical companies weren't able to sell their products. And one example was a place where they have a lot of rice patties and stuff like that. People don't know where it is. I can't remember where it is. And there was a gentleman there, they said they went there and said, oh, these products, they help people stop being depressed. And they were like, oh, we've got something for that already. We don't need any. And they were like, what's your process? So this guy had had his leg blown off by a mine that had just been left over from wars in the area or whatever. And he had loads and loads of fields that he used to tend, and he could no longer tend them because he blew his leg off. And he got really depressed. And their solution, their anti-depression thing, they gave him a cow. And that was the solution to his antidepressant. And I was like, okay, what the hell does that mean? How the hell does that work? Well, the reason he was depressed is he couldn't do the thing that his job. He couldn't do his passion. He couldn't do his purpose anymore. So we thought, what could he do with his blown off leg? He could be a dairy farmer. He could sit and milk his cows, and he could have his people herd his cattle and stuff like that. And he sold his land and swapped it in for grazing land, and he got a bunch of cows. And it gave him purpose again. It gave him a structure. It gave him a reason to exist in the community. And he wasn't depressed anymore. He didn't require medication. He required a purpose. And that was, we forget that. When we speak to people that are struggling, what are you focused on, mate? What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about? What did you do yesterday? What are you doing tomorrow? What are you looking forward to? They haven't got to say, oh, I'm looking forward to curing cancer tomorrow. It hasn't got to be big. Said, oh, well, I've been looking at this, somebody bought me a flipping lampshade 3 weeks ago and I've still not put it up. Okay, why don't you put it up tomorrow? Send me a photo of it. Let me know how it goes. What colour is it? Why do you want to put it up? What's interesting about it? Who gave it to you? It hasn't got to be life-shattering stuff. For them, it's relative. You've got to have small goals to look forward to. Who's the tidiest?
Wow. Yeah, Zoe has what I call a floor job, which has been there since uni.
Floor drope.
Yeah, to be fair, Zoe is our little tidier. So I'd say Zoe's, if you break it down into sort of percentage of work done, Zoe does all the big yards, but I'm the guy that goes around, polishing things, making sure, doing my little, making it look like I've not been there. In reality, it's a complete, a complete mess, but at least I've cleaned the kitchen. There's nothing left in the living room, but at least you can see the kitchen, that's clean.
Matt tidies around objects. It doesn't count as tidying. You've got to do the whole job.
Oh, half a job. Half a job, Matt. That's what I call it. Half for one of next year. So personal development. Are there any books, any resources, anything when you were going through your studies and stuff? So, is there anything for people that want to become a paramedic? Was there anything you thought you looked at, or a documentary you watched, or anything that you thought was useful?
Yeah, so I hated reading, if I'm honest with you. I was much more practical. So podcast, research room, I lived off that. Amazing. Trauma care, CPD. So it's a lot of sessions that you can actually attend to. You can be a student, whatever. And you go along, just chuck yourself into a scenario. And it's the best confidence boost. You get hands-on and you learn from the best.
Yeah.
So for me, it's turning up those CP events. Yeah, you can read the book, brilliant. And if that's how you learn, spot on. But for me, it was getting involved in those CPDs because it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And whenever I was driving, I'd put on a podcast. Spotify, there's loads, but Research Room is phenomenal.
I know.
Yeah,
Spotify,
really good.
audiobook. I'm an audiobook fiend. I just like
Yeah.
pour it into my ears non-stop, because whether you think you're listening or you're not, subliminally, it's always going in. And you just learn so much. Honestly, it just accelerates that personal development. And yeah, I'm a kinesthetic learner as well. I have to do it in person. I have to engage with people. It brings the content alive to me, whether it's their voice or them themselves. I've always struggled reading books. I think I'd have really struggled if I did that. Matt, same question for you.
Again, podcast, to be fair. I'm the same. I'm kind of a visual learner. I like to see things. So a lot of the stuff I sort of watch, to be fair, is like, sounds pretty sad, but Blues and Twos series from the 90s. I mean, I watched no end of the fire service ones just to kind of, I don't know, you see people doing the job. It's kind of like it's experience. You're watching other people do things and seeing how things come across. I watch a lot of these sort of American, the FDNY, like documentaries like Still Riding, all them sort of things. Not so much because of the job, but it's kind of like the values they instill. And I mean, they talk a lot about the brotherhood and what that means. And I'm not saying I'm envious of it, but I feel as if a large part of their job, or what they talk about, it sounds a bit corny, but when you hear people talk, sort of podcasts I listen to, you hear sort of people talk, and they're all take their job very seriously. They've got a lot of pride in the job. Yeah. And I feel as if sometimes that's lacking in some services that I've worked in, and some people kind of forget the ways maybe. And I'm kind of envious of how they create the persona around themselves and sort of, I guess, the community.
That's why we need to do it. That's what honestly, mate, you've literally just articulated the podcast. Because for me, we've got to recognize and acknowledge each other, because what gets recognized and rewarded with that acknowledgement is going to get repeated, and we create that identity for ourselves. And there's something about this Western world, where, I mean, we don't celebrate each other. In America and places like that, they'll high five each other. Oh yeah, goddamn, you got a promotion, well done. Whereas over here, like, if you said, oh, Zoe went to her friends, and Zoe's friends might be great, but some people are like, oh, I've just got a promotion, or I just did this, or I just had a great rescue, or I just did whatever. People would be like, oh, I'll get you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mate, you need to recheck your ego. Yeah. No one's. And we're like, what the hell? Why? Why can't you just go, yeah, Jesus Christ, so that's amazing. Wow, Matt, that's awesome. Jesus, dude, that's incredible. Why? And that's what we need to do more of.
It is. It's like almost a British thing that you get things done, but you don't say anything about it. You don't ask for any praise because people, you're doing your job.
That's dead. We're killing that. We're killing that. One podcast at a time.
Rightly so.
We've got to recognise each other, celebrate each other. Police, military, ambulance, NHS, fire service. God damn it. People want to cheer for us. They do. Not us, not, oh yeah, let's cheer for Zoe, let's cheer for Matt. They want to cheer for the people that are trying to make a difference in the community. They want to.
Yeah, massively.
But we need to show them what we do. We need to talk about it.
That's the big thing, is that you get your documentaries about the police, the ambulance service. I mean, the fire service, they're like Westminster did Into the Fire, and I think it's West Yorkshire did their own version. But not that many people know about the British Fire Service. We don't open the doors up. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a political thing. Maybe it's what. Maybe they're worried that
they're scared.
Well, yeah,
they're going to do themselves out of a job. We are. Oh no, we're professionals, so we don't do that. You know what? You're going to do yourselves into obscurity. You are going to do yourself into irrelevance if you don't open the doors and let people in and show them what you do.
100%. And it's like when people sort of say about like community engagement and stuff. The fire service is all. That is our. They keep saying that's our 90% thing is community engagement, prevention activities. Well, I mean, COVID aside, well, then let's get people inside. Let's show them what we do.
Yeah.
Because like Zoe always calls me water fairy, or paramedics call us water fairies.
Yeah.
And they're always saying, oh, them fire engines are always clean. They would never go anywhere. But every time that truck goes out, we wash it and polish it, because that's the history of the service. Polishing ladders, polishing any part of a truck that can be bulled up. That's the history. That's the tradition.
Yeah.
People don't realise that. People do not realise the tradition behind the fire service and where it's come from and where it is now, because, like you said, no one talks about it. Unless you're interested and you go looking for it yourself,
but you can make it interesting. You don't
100%.
You don't have to be boring and technical and tell everybody that sort of stuff. That's where we go wrong. We record a thing and then we're talking about stuff nobody cares about. Do you know what I mean? That's the reason I'm still pushing for my promotion stuff, because I want to get to a position where, like in today's, I would be inviting in social media influencers and say to them, come and do a day on the fire station and we'll film it and you can promote it through all your social media channels, do whatever, earn your goddamn money from it, I don't care. But come on in and let's talk about what it is. Ask me all the stupid questions. Ask me about dead people if you want to. Ask me about anything. Yeah, put the fire kit on, do the thing, but we're scared of it in ways, and we just are missing it. I actually feel like Zoe's team, I think the paramedics actually do it far better than us. I think they've had some fantastic exposure
100%.
In the way that they do it, and they almost, because they don't care less and they're not less professional, but they're so much more open.
Yeah, you're right.
So I see it from the other side. So obviously dating a paramedic, dating a firefighter.
She's dating a paramedic as well.
A lot of people,
Jesus, she let that slip, didn't she?
That must be Trevor.
That's Trevor. Said you were just friends.
That comes around when you're on night. A lot of people say, so what does he do? Because there's not many fires. I get that question all the time, and it's like, he doesn't just do fires. Like there's other stuff, and like hardly any people that I speak to go, we go to RCCs and things like, what's that? What? Like people are so unaware.
Yeah.
They really are.
I know, and that's our fault.
All they see is,
that's our fault.
Yeah, it is, because all they see is fire. They don't see the rescue part. They don't appreciate. I mean, like, you can go in a rabbit hole with this sort of stuff, but the amount of jobs we sort of attend to, and if I talk to my dad about what in the 90s they went to, it were fires, and every now and again a road traffic collision. That were it. Like the fact that we go out now and assist the ambulance service, like extricate patients from houses, like not even people that are necessarily trapped, but that they are trapped. They're trapped by the physical limitations of a room they're in and the size they are. Like to me, some people, they hate that. Well, it's not our job. Well, our job says fire and rescue. So we're going to put out fires, and if there's no fires to put out, we're going to rescue people. And if someone can't get themselves out, that's rescuing.
We went to humanitarian assistance the other day, right, where we actually went, talking about cattle again, we went to a cattle farm where they'd had a rupture in a water main, and they couldn't operate any of their equipment, and they didn't have any water for the cows. So basically we just ferried a load of water up there, because there's something apparently, right, if you've got milking cows and you don't milk them, they can die, I think. They basically swell up. There's a farmer going to contact me and tell me I'm wrong, but they basically, you have to milk them regularly. If they're actively getting milked all the time, you've got to do it. Otherwise they can clog up and get really poorly really, really fast. So we went up and we spent hours pumping water all the way up to all their troughs, to all their systems, so that they could actually work. And we do things like that, and people are like, what? And you're like, yeah, that's another part of the job. It's a toolbox, and we're a bunch of skilled operators with a problem-solving mindset, and we can apply that to so many things.
Yeah, not just fires.
Not just fires, baby. Zoe, what one piece of advice that's commonly said in the sector do you think people should ignore?
That it's all blood and gore, because it's not. Like the amount of mental health we go to, and the non-glamorous stuff, and the social care, and the dealing with the family, it is not all legs hanging off and things like that. It really isn't. Yeah. A lot of it is the emotional stuff. I don't know. I think it actually entices people into the job. I find I'm starting to have students now, and I'm getting a lot of students that have just watched these Channel 4 documentaries and going, where's the heart attack? Where's this? Where's the trauma? And it's that's what, I don't know what percentage of our workload is. Very small compared to all the mental health and the social needs and all that stuff.
My brother-in-law said that. I did a ride along with. He's a paramedic. I did a ride along with. I've done lots in the past with him. And I did one, and he said, "Oh, I envy you guys sometimes." I said, "Yeah, no, you do." He said, "No, seriously, because
Natural, mate. Natural.
it's all right. You can ask me a question. Go on, it's all right." No, and he was like, "You get to go to a lot more trauma." He says, "We go to lots of stuff, and you pretty much, if you go to an incident, you predominantly go into trauma." And like I say, some people think of the paramedics as it's all blood and gore. We spent like 3 hours. We went to this guy, and he was like, "I've got blood in my poo," and we spent like an hour in diagnose. I obviously didn't do anything. I did, I was like, oh, so I just started talking about anything, right? I started talking to this guy about reasons I thought he might have blood in his poo, and my brother-in-law was like, "Hey Pete, you said you were coming to observe, yeah? Why don't you shut up and let me be a paramedic?
Observe.
Yeah, as you're not remotely clinically trained and you don't know what you're talking about, why don't you just watch? Yeah, and then I will do my job." He's absolutely right. I just can't help myself. I'm like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Let's see what Google says. No, let's not see what Google says. Let's like let the qualified paramedic do the job that I'm here to do. I love him.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish you'd have known when you started the job, Matt?
What's one thing I wish I'd known? I mean, I'm kind of fortunate again that my dad was in it, so I was grounded in very early days. Let me put it that much. When I went to training school, I stayed at my parents then, and my dad was making sure every single day I'm polishing my shoes and ironing my trousers and my shirt. So it was kind of one of them things where, I don't know, I didn't have too many questions, but I guess the one thing I sort of is ask more questions and don't afraid to sort of, I got told to be the grey man. Just be the grey man, just toe the party line. Don't necessarily stand out, but don't underperform. Be that middle sort of thing. And I guess I wish I probably asked more questions. Okay. I think is probably what I'd wish I'd done. And just, I'm quite an open person anyway, but not been afraid by ranks or what people might say about people. Because at the end of the day, everyone's human. And just approach things and approach people without any fear of them thinking, "Oh, I'm just a new recruit," or "I'm just, I'm essentially nobody. I'm just a firefighter," and they're, a group manager, area manager. I think that's what I probably wish, because it's always awkward when you get sort of senior management come in and sort of say, "Do you have any questions for us?" And again, there's a lot of blank faces in the room. Everyone's there like,
I ask loads of questions. I do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I wish I did, because things happen sometimes, and sometimes I've had it before where the watch meeting beforehand is right. Okay, so and so's coming in. Don't ask any questions, because the sooner they're gone, the sooner we can go and do what we need to do. And I'm like, okay, to a certain extent, right? Okay, I understand that.
Never
but
do
at the
that
same
with my
time,
crew.
like, one of them things where I want to ask the questions, but yeah, I guess that's the thing, because sometimes things happen, and you're like, well, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
And until someone says, well, we're doing that because X, Y, and Z, you can kind of either challenge it, or at least you can understand why things are changing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, the more time I'm having, the sort of more confident I'm becoming.
Yeah.
But again, you taught that timing matters most.
Shy kids, mate. Come on, shy kids. You got to ask the questions. If you understand the why behind something, then the what and the how are easier to comprehend. They're easier to digest, because you understand the why. Zoe.
Yeah, definitely.
Same question. Is there anything you wish you'd have known when you came to the job, or is there anything you would do less of, or anything you do more of, looking back on the career that you've done so far and sort of coming into the job?
I mean, one thing I'm very thankful for is getting the exposure to help me in my job. Yeah, it's definitely changed the condition I am, without question. What would I do differently? That's a hard one, isn't it? Because you always have regrets, but I try and learn from my regrets.
Yeah.
Like, I always make mistakes, but as long as I learn from it, that's fine, and that's the best way to learn from me, without question. I was very good at asking questions, because I almost played a bit of dumber stereotypes, because while I was a student, I wanted to make sure I could get all those questions out of the way. Then when I was a paramedic, I wasn't then asking the questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, just get the exposure, as much exposure as possible, really. Because I was the COVID cohort, there's stuff I couldn't do, like going into a maternity ward. I wanted to do that. I want to get so much more experience, but that is something I'm going to do now, because I lacked that because of COVID. I really missed out on those opportunities. So delivering my first baby, I'd never seen it done before, and that was just following textbooks. Yeah. So next time I want to have more exposure and being better than I was before. So yeah, I'm gonna go and try and get those work experiences now.
That's
as
great,
soon
though.
as I can.
You know, you've identified that hollow spot and you're just going to face into it and grab it by the horns. Most people avoid it like the plague, and they miss out so much on it. It really upsets me when I see people avoiding those aspects. But I love what you said about, I mean, you used the word dumb, but that's what I do all the time. Like if someone's explaining something and then you get in there and then finish their sentence, or you say, oh yeah, you mean because of X, Y, Z, you cut them off because then they stop. And then the next thing they were about to say might have been the thing you didn't know, but you were so eager to show them how goddamn clever you are that you said the thing. And if you act dumb, that's kind of the hard idea of the podcast. My job is to ask the stupid questions all the time. Even if I think I know what the answer is going to be, I learn so much because there's a surprise a day waiting for you working with people. They throw out some amazing stuff, and everyone has different experiences. I'm never going to see the things that Zoe has seen. I might see my version of some of them, but I'm never going to see them. I'm never going to see them from your eyes either. So that's the best way to build rapport, because it's the difference between empathy and sympathy, and actually getting a conceptual understanding for how other people are experiencing the world and how other people are seeing it, and what they take from their own nurturing. What learning do they take from it? There's so much of that we miss out on, but you've identified, a hollow spot, and I identify them all the time, and then it gives you an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, massively. Just listening, you can learn so much. You can learn more from listening than talking. Simple.
2 ears, 1
That's
mouth.
why I've always struggled.
2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak. That's what I was always told. Last few. Leadership. I wanted to ask you both on leadership. We've had good managers, we've had bad managers, good leaders, bad leaders. Even as part of a relationship, though, that's required to lead at times, when one of you is struggling and the other one's not. What are some of the best leadership characteristics? What do you love about the leaders that you admire, or what are the things that you aspire to be as a leader?
One massive quality that I love in a leader is they remember where they've come from. So yes, they might be the manager now, but they were once where we were. And I've got a phenomenal line manager because he relates to me and he doesn't look down on me for what I'm saying. He's like, yeah, I get it. I've been there. And he talks to me like I'm a human. He doesn't talk to me like he's my boss or whatever. And that makes him so approachable. So I really can go to him and be like, look. And it's almost like sitting down with a mate, really, get a cup of coffee and let's have a chat. So yeah, remembering where they've come from definitely is massive for me. I hate it when they look down and you think, oh, you should know that or whatever.
Love that. Matt, same question.
I think leading from the front is the big one for me. I got told early on, what you permit, you promote. Especially being on a watch, if things start going south, things can go south pretty quickly. And all the sort of crew managers, watch managers I've had that have been like, you know what, these are definitely worth their salt. Individuals that lead from the front, that and they're humble. Like Zoe said, they don't forget where they've come from. They're not afraid of making mistakes, and they sort of are just honest. And you can't ask for more than that. You can't get mad at someone or annoyed if they're just honest and like, lads, I fucked up there. I should have done X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is. But you know that also, if they're asking you to go and do some stuff we go to, it's touch and go sometimes. Things are a bit airy. We either intervene or we don't intervene, and it's like that fine line. But I've always had that confidence in sort of instant commanders and people I've worked under, the bosses I've worked under, that they wouldn't make me do anything that they weren't prepared to do, or they've not done already. And I guess the ones I admire are the ones that I know through and through, there's nothing they'd make me do that they haven't done or wouldn't do. And the ones that I'm a little bit more sort of second guessing with are individuals that I think, I don't know if you do the same. No. Or if I needed you to do something, would you come and help me? And that's when I start to think that kind of splits it for me. It's the people that lead from the front that, and again, if, as and when I go to that for promotion, I think that's the kind of the leader I'd like to be. I'd like to be the sort of person that the watch can say, well, what Matt says, Matt will do. Yeah. I think that's what matters most.
Yeah. It's the people that create their own rules for their own leave and stuff like that, or they that's just like, they're like, oh no, that's my seat, or I always, no, fuck off, sit anywhere. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter who sleeps where. Yeah, everyone's hands get in the sink. Do you know what I mean? Everyone has to get involved. Got to get involved, and you've got to be on an even keel with everybody. Otherwise, you lose that authenticity. You lose that. It's so, and once you've lost it, it's gone. You just can't get that back.
100%.
You just cannot get that back.
It's like you said, we spoke earlier about like reward and effort versus outcome. Like I've had some JOs that are in, like, I think I've been quite fortunate that most I've worked with have been top notch, but I've had some JOs that, like, one of my best mates, I was lucky enough for him to be our crew manager for a while. And it was incredible because he's a loving guy anyway. He's a great guy, Carl was. But even more so, his philosophy aligned quite well with mine in terms of what we thought about leadership. So we go to a decent job, or we did things well, and his first house fire was in charge of us. After that, he was so happy for one that he'd done it, and he'd been, he'd gone well, but also like we'd all performed, and we had some new recruits, and he was like, "You've done well." It's that rewarding the effort. Like, I'm so proud of you, and he was never afraid to sort of say how he felt. There was nothing held back, and I guess that it encourages everybody else to do the same. It's an open forum then, like, I like how you did that, or we set up really well for entry. That was fantastic. Or you getting their reels off. We're dead fast. We set into hydrant fast. It just boosts that morale, and that's a happy watch.
Yeah, I always do that. It catches some people off guard though. Sometimes if we have like people covering, we'll go to just like a gain entry or even something simple, and then afterwards we're back on the pump or we sit down. I'm like, would you have done anything differently? What would you do? And they're like, no, I think you were fine. What you did was fine. Yeah, but like, would you do anything differently? Because when you heard that thing, or when you saw the door, when you saw the window, because there was another option we could have done there. What did you think? What would you do? And it totally takes some people by surprise because they're like, "Well, that's not my job. You're in charge." I'm like, "Yeah, no. I'll take responsibility if it goes wrong, but I don't have to be in charge, or I don't have to make every decision. I'm there to call it if I think it's getting dangerous, or to take responsibility if it goes wrong. Don't have to make all the decisions. Anybody can make the decisions. If we're at HGV and you're a lorry driver in your spare time, I'm going to look to you for what your thoughts are and what your opinions are. And if that's the best way to go, that's what we're going to do. But it's rare.
No, you're right. I mean, my first watch manager is sort of my first day on watch. He sort of said to me, right, I might ask you questions of what you think. He said, I might not listen to it. I might not do what you say, but never be afraid to tell me what you see and what you think, because you might be seeing something, like you said, have the experience I don't have, nobody else has. That's going to be the ultimate end. And I think that open forum, again, communication, it's all about how you set up a watch and how you lead. And again, the difference, I guess, between the fire service and sort of the ambulance service is like Zoe's, it's hurting somebody else, whereas for us, there's always 3 other people at minimum. So you've got to kind of, within that group, you've got to have little small leaders as well. You've got to lead each other, even though you've got people that are ultimately in charge and like to take responsibility.
Everyone's a leader. Before you can lead anybody else, you must be able to lead yourself first and foremost.
Exactly.
And then your best friend, your partner, if you're a parent, whatever it may be, everyone has got those leadership characteristics. They're not something you get given to you. You don't get handed them when you go through the veil and curtain and become a leader. I see lots of managers that have got no leadership capabilities, and I see people who will never want to be anything more than a firefighter, and they're the best leaders on the watch sometimes. Yeah. They really are.
Effortless
leadership.
Like,
it's
just
natural.
do things.
Yeah, it's always often you find the people that should do it are the ones that want it the least.
You're right.
You're like, oh, mate, you'd make a great manager. No, it's not for me. And I'm like, oh, but dude, that's why you should do it.
Yeah.
Final question, Zoe. What do you think are some of the essential characteristics that people need to be a paramedic?
Communication, straight away, without question. Can't communicate. Empathy, you've really got to try and understand what they're going through, why they're doing things, and you've just got to want to help. You've got to want to make a difference. I think you get to a stage in your career, and if you're not willing to learn anymore and you're not willing to be right by people, you need to be out the door, because that's what this job is just making someone's worst day, or even not their worst day, that little bit better. You've got to really have a passion to do that, I think.
The constant thing now is change, isn't it? Change. People that don't like change are really going to struggle, because the only constant is change now. Things are going to continue to change rapidly. Processes, procedures, how we help people, who we help. And you're going to have to keep learning. You've got to be the eternal student now. Yeah,
you've got to have that passion. Because in this job, if you're not reading, if you're not doing your CPD every month or however often you want to do it, you're going to fall behind and you are going to forget. Because medications change, protocols change, how things work. Yeah. You really need to be on top of your game, for sure.
Good job they're not changing how they pitch a ladder, eh, Matt?
They're taking them away slowly, though. Taking them away.
Characteristics. And now I'm interested in yours, brother, because obviously you've got your dad as well. What do you think are the essential characteristics to be a great firefighter?
I think the one thing is you've got to be disciplined. We mentioned it earlier. It's not just disciplined. It's disciplined in everything. Is that at times there's a right place and a wrong place to say and do things, and it's knowing the difference between the two. Part of that's time in the job and sort of learning the job and knowing when you can and when you can't push, and who you can and can't push. But I think the big thing for me is you've got to have some pride in the job. Like Zoe said, like a lot of paramedics now and they burn after 5 years and that's it. For me, like this is the fire service is a career. Like the ambulance service should be a career. People, it's difficult. And they are different beasts. But ultimately, the fire service for me, it's not just a job. It's not like I'm going to stack shelves or I'm doing a meaningless task or whatever it is, digging holes for a living. I'm fortunate enough to every single day I go to work, put on a shirt, the badge that represents, the county or the city or whatever it is that I work for. And I think that pride's kind of lost on some people. We mentioned earlier. Yeah. And I think it's just having that desire and that pride. That's what matters to me. And it's wanting to be a part of the fire service and what it means and its history and just buying into it. Not trying to be like, I am Matt. These are my things. I'm going to join the job and I will change the job. But don't get me wrong. There's two things firefighters hate most, which is the way things are and change. They're the two things they hate. And you've got to have that kind of understanding. And every service has a core values, and people bang on about that. But I think it's discipline and accountability are the two ones to me that sort of hit home. You've got to be disciplined enough to do the job and keep yourself in shape. And like Zoe said, like your CPD, keep on top of your reading. The amount of people that I've been to some old sweats that really knew the stuff and they secretly kept reading firemanship manuals from like the 90s. They're still doing that.
They've got it in their locker. And they're just having a quick glance.
They are, 100%. Yeah. And they're still reading things. And then you've got some old sweats that just aren't bothered. I've done this job 20, 30 years. Like,
I've never, ever opened their emails. They're like, I've never logged in. I don't know how to use a computer.
I've got no idea. Where's that? And that's where you that's to me where that pride's got to come in. Like, we're professionals. We should be professional. We should be able to answer questions and know things and understand things. And I guess that's the two things to me. And then be accountable for your actions, accountable for the fact that you don't need to know everything. If you don't know something, do something about it. Yeah. And they're the two sort of things I think you can't go far wrong with them.
Absolutely love it. Zoe, Matt, that's been awesome. Thank you so much for taking. Do you realize I've been talking for over 2 hours? Non-stop.
No way.
I know. Honestly, it goes by in such a flash, but I've loved it. Thank you so much for being so open. And
thanks for having us.
Thank you for sharing. I just love it. And we need to do more of this. We need to give people insights because I've taken so much away from our conversation. And my sincere hope is that other people have. I hope there's other guys out there and other girls, other 5'3" girls that think, oh God, I don't think I could do it. And I don't think this and I don't think that. And then they hear you and they're like, Jesus, that's me. That is me. I am that person. And I remember 3 years ago when I didn't go for it. And you know what? I'm going to go and have a look at the application. Apparently they're still looking for people. I want people to have those takeaways. And I think you've given it in spades today, both of you.
No, I really appreciate that. I've loved talking to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's been good fun. Thank you very much.
I cannot wait to see you both in Hull next year, if not hopefully sooner. But until then, send my love to everybody. Look after each other and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys. Hey folks, it's me jumping back in. I hope you loved that. I'm head over heels in love with Zoe and Matt. That was such an open, honest, great, inspiring conversation with so many aspects, even from like a personal development, from professional development, just learning so much about the challenges Zoe faced becoming a paramedic during the COVID process, what it's been like for Matt, growing up around the fire service and then going in on his own and first feeling like he couldn't ask questions and then growing in that confidence and then just the amount of self-belief and the amount of support they give to each other. I just thought that was amazing. The fact that they were open, they've had those challenges in their relationship and they've pulled through it, and now that elastic band isn't constantly feeling like it's going to snap. They're supporting each other, they're pushing each other, they're holding each other accountable. That to me is so special. It's been an absolute privilege to have Matt and Zoe on the podcast. It's a privilege to share their story with you. If you know a couple that are working on the front line, no matter who they are, boy, girl, old, young, I don't mind, I don't care. I want to be able to recognize these people who have found each other and are still choosing to use their collective good, their collective resources, and part of their life is that they give so much to their community. Thank you for coming back to the Firefighters podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some takeaways from that. I hope you were smiling. I hope you were laughing along with us. And I hope it gives that a little bit of optimism. I hope you feel a little bit better today. I hope you feel a little bit better going into tomorrow. Thank you so much for sparing your time and being here with us today. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon, right here on the Firefighters Podcast.